Duane, there's a vulgar saying that a people without a culture is a rootless people. And so we find a frenzy to preserve and uphold what I might refer to as atavistic and moribund institutions that don't meet the needs of the present day. Of late, there are bodies funding the preservation of indigenous cultures in Africa and other parts of the world. And you see, even preserving customs, traditions like we have in the Bafut, in the Bafut Kingdom, in the northern zone of Amazonia, where the Fon following tradition has so many wives, and they think it's a good idea. At present, he has 100 wives and 500 children, many inherited from his predecessors. So what do you think about the drive to preserve culture in the new nowness of the East?
The way I see it in creation is that if you'll notice, and it's not hard to realize, and that is that anything you create needs maintenance, right? So this fellow with 100 wives and the 500 kids, that's a lot of maintenance, isn't it? That's how I see it.
Okay.
So if you're ready to take on the maintenance, okay, go for it. It's a choice. It's all choice. That's all. Yes. It's just more maintenance.
Yeah, but do you see culture as being compatible or opposed to the isness life is? Does it foster one in the isness or keeps one stuck in time?
Well, to make it simple, to be stuck in time is a choice, whether you recognize it or not. And so, again, everything is recognition. And when you talk about culture, all right, so that's an idea, isn't it, that we've come to know. History, culture, tradition, ceremonies, rituals, annual events, whatever. Okay, all these things are ideas that center around basically the same thing. And again, it's a choice. So I personally do not, it's kind of like the 4th of July coming up. I personally am not interested in upholding any of these things because it only gets worse. It never gets better. It only gets worse. And actually, most of these things, even Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, turn into drunken brawls many times. And so where's the benefit? So while we're in creation, and we start to recognize this reality, it only makes sense to make sense of things and make better choices along the all-natural environment. I go out at night, take walks, and I like to just be with the trees and the plants and whatever's out there, etc. Just that part of the natural environment that's here. and when I'm out surfing in the water, etc. You see, so again, with the environment, that's all natural. And as you start to recognize this, because the environment itself is the best example of the isness to help recognize. So, yes, a person can ask the question, well, gee, should we live in the jungle or whatever? Well, again, in creation, you make the choice. You live wherever you want. You want to live in the city or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The recognition can come from anything, and it's the individual deciding. It can be anywhere. This is where, while we are in creation, we decide an activity to promote the reality life is. This becomes a big adventure. Now, nobody has to do this. They can sit home and new you all day long. They can do that too if they decide to. I just decide because I have this body that's rather agitated and likes the adventure and the risk and everything else. And it's a lot of fun to me. So I decide this, and that's why the boys picked me for the new presentation, because again, others were looked upon, but they were going to do it the same way. They were just going to do the pretty words and it becomes what? And so the boys love the adventure. They do. They love to back it up. It's just like you as a child, and eventually you become of age and you want to start your own business. As an example, the parents go, "Wow, son, we'll back you. We'll fund you, and we're there for you." But if you don't do anything, it's like, well, what is their attitude? It's like, well, when are you going to get a job? When are you going to do something? You see, uh, you know, and that's very real in creation. So we create the activity because they know the agitation, or what we call danger and involvement and etc., all these things, it helps wake people up. And this is why people are waking up to certain things in the world today, because of how bad things are getting. They're getting worse and worse, and people are recognizing, hey, how much more poison can we take? But there's more to recognize. So yes, along those lines, Charles, with these ideas of culture and all these things, I know that you can keep milk out and it starts the culture. I guess that's the idea, whatever. So there's different types of culture, but these are things in creation. And once they're recognized for what they are, it's up to each individual, if they choose to create a benefit with them. It's just like recycling trash. You can recycle it into making bricks for houses, whatever. See, it's all workable stuff. Everything is workable. So it's to the point where the individual wants to step up and be part of it. Well, this is just me. This is what I do. I like to do this. I like to create the activity, and it bothers people, but in a genuine way, because my intent is there. And at the same time, I have a right to say something about anything, because I'm living in this world too, and I don't like the microwaves. I don't like the electricity. I don't like the frequency of these things and the poisons and everything else, and the subliminals, etc. So again, each person decides their activity, etc., or they just go back to what they've been geared to, and most people have been geared to going to school, getting your diploma, get your 9-to-5 job, and support yourself. That's the end result. That's it. And so again, it's a choice, isn't it? So I brought my life around to do this, and it's taken a lot. Yes, it does take a lot, but this is the best part, the best recognition, the recognition of this, and it gets cleaner and cleaner. This is the purity aspect we're talking about. It just gets better and better, and as long as you have the intent, life sees that, and it will support you no matter what happens. It will support you, and if you fall sometimes, you might say it picks you up again, or you pick yourself up. But yes, go ahead, Charles. So much for these things. These are ideas, and again, a lot of maintenance with these ideas. How much maintenance do you want? I would rather maintain something that's a better choice and creates a benefit for everybody. So I'll be out there washing down the vessel if that's what it takes, but at least that promotes a better idea, better benefit than just a regular boat that you got to maintain and paint once in a while. So again, it's a choice, And yes, in creation there is maintenance. So you choose your maintenance. Yeah, you choose your maintenance and your activity here. Or you drag the old stuff with you and think that's going to work. Well, you can see it doesn't work. And now the reptilians have all of it, and everybody's getting tap blind. They still don't see it. When will they? Well, that's a choice. All we can do is give them the hints. And so this becomes the new presentation right now. Yes, every moment. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Duane. I want to ask something on the imagination. Imagination seems to be maybe the thought of the free being of light that we each is. But it is relayed through the conscious mind. See, but uh, is it that because it is relayed through the mind, it becomes soiled? And so, how can we separate this, what I may call this superlative thought of the Yuton from the babble of the mind that is agitated by sensory stimuli?
So what is the question? You have the imagination and the babbling of the mind. So what's the idea?
So the question is, how do we get to actually take hold of this imagination, to understand that this is the thought of the real me, and it's not just maybe some random thought of the mind, which is constantly agitated by the sensory environment. So that we may have a genuine, what I call a real breakthrough in something, that we may dismiss it as irrelevant, or some other person may dismiss it, but it's actually what has come through, what has filtered through the mind that we all use here. So how can we learn to take hold of this superlative form of imagination or thought? Imagination is the thought of the real you. So how do we get to separate it from the random actions of the mind?
Well, it's rather simple, and also the mind is mechanics. It's like your computer. It's mechanics. Even the sensations and all these things, the sensations, the memories, the mind. Okay, these are mechanics of the various bodies or senses, faculties, whatever you want to call them. And the imagination, and in Paul's day, Rebazar gave a little story, talked about this individual who was carrying this big mirror from the heavens or whatever. He just gave a little story because these are the old parables that they gave. And then on his journey to somewhere, he dropped the mirror, and all these little pieces fell all over the place. They scattered and whatever, and some individuals picked them up. In other words, that mirror was the reflection of the reality, or in the old days was the God idea. It was the reflection of God. And some individuals picked it up and some didn't. In other words, you see this in the world today. Most of the world is literal, one-dimensional, literal. They don't realize that. They're thinking that, oh, no, we're in a 3-dimension, and now we're in the 4-dimension, and we're going in the 5th dimension. Well, these are, again, ideas upon ideas. And the imagination is a tool, you might say, It is a reality that we're experiencing more so than the mind. And, again, it takes a little practice to recognize the difference, but most people have brought into play that their imagination is their mind, you see. And so they don't talk about the imagination too much, only once in a while, but mainly the mind itself and the structure of things. Uh, this is only in creation. The imagination and all these things that we experience here through the five bodies do not apply to the real universes, because the isness that is recognized, the all aliveness, I call it, uh, the sound, light, reality, whatever, it's already perfect. So you can set up something in your imagination to relate to it. So again, it's like, creating a diving board to dive into the water, all right? So you can get a little bit higher, you might say. But the imagination itself is flexible according to the mind. And actually, when people think, well, I invented this idea and I thought it up and whatever, actually, they first imagined it and then brought it into the play of the mind, and the mind calculated it, is what the mind does, just like your computer. You only go to your computer to calculate things or research or whatever because it's a storehouse. And so the same thing, the real you utilizes the various vehicles accordingly, but it really utilizes its imagination and its intuition the most. But for it to recognize that takes a little bit of time to kind of pinpoint it and to separate the difference. So again, that's an individual affair. And so as you do recognize these things in creation, the different parts of yourself, this is where you face yourself. Okay, and it's best to, because then you start to recognize these different parts. You can learn to make better choices, and you can learn to get on with the activity that is in the new nowness of life, and not like the old days where people just sat around and meditated and did all these cute things. Well, fine, meditate once in a while. That makes you feel good. But realistically, you don't need to do any of these things because it is recognition, and that's with you all the time. So you don't have to sit in a certain posture or do things or consider things or all these things. The actual balance, and if you're going to use these ideas, balance, peace, harmony, all these things, they're with you all the time. It's how you see them. And actually, what's better is the isness. You don't need any of those ideas. Once you recognize, this is what I call perceiving, okay? Once you recognize and understand this, you might say, communication with this reality, okay? You don't need any of these things. You don't need thought, imagination, or whatever, because it is you. You recognize now it is fully you, more than so just the idea, but an actual event, an actual recognition. But in the meantime, while we're in creation and to relate to others, we utilize these different faculties, and it's fun in its own way to, you might say, upbeat things with people. You give them the opportunity. Well, especially in the business world that I've been in for a long time, I decided that, and I creatively put myself into it. For the most part, I have to deal with people that are very literal. They feel that the rules, regulations, which are really restrictions, apply first. They always look to what you can't do first. Okay, well, that can't be done, but maybe we can figure out and do it. You see, this is their approach for the most part. And then when you meet somebody that says, yeah, we can do that, let's do it. That's amazing. I hardly ever meet anybody like that. Most of the time it's like, well, I can't do that. I don't have time. Oh, I never did that, blah, blah, blah. Me, when I hear something, if it makes sense, it's just like, yeah, let's do it. And we'll figure it out on the way. It's not that it's just that you instantly know everything, but at least you move forward. And this is where life backs you. And especially now you have the new you and the boys. So again, it's up to the individual how they apply themselves. But the imagination is very workable, but it's very limited according to your real awareness. And so how you see these things from your intuition, your insight, your mind, your emotions, etc. Most things go to the motion and sensation, and people think that they need to, well, gee, I have to feel this, or I don't have any feeling about this, or I don't have any feelings for you. See, it's come to the physical astral part of sensations where you got to have feelings, okay? And so, which realistically you don't. Does the sun have feelings? Is there belief or happiness there or whatever? Again, these things are decided accordingly. The isness is better than any happiness, any joy, any thrill, any bliss, because it's real. It's so real that to recognize it, yeah, that's something else. But in the meantime, in creation, the imagination, okay, it's a useful tool, you might say, because it's more flexible than the mind. But this is why we have the systems that we do, the educational system, because those that control the world, which has been agreed upon, most people want the world controlled. Well, they want everybody robotized and one-dimensional, stay one-dimensional, so they can continue to be controlled. Well, we're here showing them more. So again, it's how you apply these things, but that's a start, and that should get you into your intuition, and eventually at some point you do have this real recognition and you apply it accordingly while you're in creation. That's why the boys are here. They've done their part. They've moved on. They stand real on the real side, okay? And so this is why Paul left when he did. It was to support what I'm doing here. Okay, so he did his part, and now it's to support what I'm doing, and all the real guys to support what we're doing now, and as we go on, etc., and see how this comes out. Again, we have to deal with free will in this world, and so very few people will step up to figure it out. Their personal life's too important, or they've got all kinds of excuses, etc. Well, again, it don't work. You know, you do it or you don't. That's the reality of things. So there's no in between, or you keep yourself in the gray area. But if you need your imagination to help you get going, use it. And eventually recognize the real you. That's the best part. And those that do, just like the real guides, they step up. They're assisting everybody. They're not just off in some la-la land, you know, just having their blissful experiences. No, they're very focused on the individuals, all the people here that are willing to do something, and they see your intent too. They see it, and they can only guide you and educate you according to your intent and your willingness to, you know, make better choices, wake up, be more real, etc., and to recognize this reality. But the imagination is a faculty in creation that's utilized to help these things along. And not that much is talked about it realistically. It's put in the background. And just like Joni and the corporation, you know, it's just basically Xing out the so-called inner experiences, etc., keeping people one-dimensional. Forget your imagination. We'll tell you what life is about. You just follow our instructions. You just read the books, just like in school. You don't need an imagination. You know, you're going to get a diploma. You're going to be educated. You're going to have a great job with us. So you don't need your imagination. This is the world today, but you decide.